Hi, thanks for joining me. My name is Sam. I don't do a lot of rankings, but I started this one when there were only 9 episodes in the Star Wars Visions project. A lot of episodes felt like they either should have been shows themselves or could have been the pilot to a show, whether or not that show would have been good. And so I decided to rank them that way, and when Season 2 came around, I added that in, and I've since rewatched it and put it all together into this list, this video, and I think I'll just get right into it. Easily the worst of the episodes is Tatooine Rhapsody. Although it has a good hook, and when it actually slows down, there's some really good emotional moments between characters that I think is good enough for a pilot that's just meant to let you know who the characters are, how they interact with each other, and how they might be able to be fleshed out moving forward. The main point of the episode is supposed to be the music, hence the name, and it sounds like which apparently is all Jabba needs to let somebody go, but I guess that makes sense considering his taste in music. If I were to continue the show, the fact that the lead singer is actually a Jedi escaping the Empire will naturally become a core conflict. They'll also be looking for the guitarist. It could work if it was taken in the right direction and got better music and vocals, but that would have been very unlikely. Second to last is Season 1, Episode 3, titled The Twins, and the establishing shot basically lets you know what the episode's gonna be like. It's just all over-the-top nonsense. The humor is the same sort of joke used over and over of someone saying something and then there's a visual irony to go along with it that just gets old very fast. And there's no immersion because there's just so little to actually focus on because there's so much going on at a time. There might be something to Lord Kare trying to get off Tatooine to find his sister Lady M, and them being stuck on opposite sides of this war. There's also another episode of Visions that pulls this off even better. So there's just nothing in this episode, but it at least is more entertaining and less obnoxious than Tatooine Rhapsody. The blending of line sketches and watercolor in the first episode of Season 2, called Sith, is actually very inspired and looks great. The character designs, machinery, and just general artwork all blend together nicely, and they're very creative and dynamic. And the crackling lightsaber designs both fit in and stand out as any good lightsaber should. Unfortunately, unlike, again, another episode that's higher up on this list, it doesn't leave me wanting more from this not a Sith character. To extend the show, I'd have her take on an apprentice of her own and try to teach this mentality she's come up with about blending the light and the dark, but then end up being killed by the apprentice. Again, this episode has potential when done right, but I don't think they would take it in a direction with positive messaging and more try to pass off this idea of embracing darkness. Being a pilot, there's room for the messaging and tone to change as the story goes on. Season 2 also gave us the Bandits of Golak in episode 7, which has probably the best computer animation. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to watch because the characters make so many nonsensical decisions over and over, and just especially the little girl seems old enough to understand what's going on, but she doesn't. And her brother is not really doing the best job taking care of her. He leaves her on the train to go get some food. And at the very end, when it's clear that people are definitely trying to kill his sister, he just lets her go down a mysterious pathway with a random stranger that they just met. And this woman's only credentials are that she's the only one who hasn't tried to either capture or kill her yet. Episode 2 of Bandits of Golok should just turn the ending on its head and have him go back and realize that he made a big mistake. As it stands, Season 1's 9th episode, Akakiri, has nothing going for it. The characters are bland and undefined. Tsubaki doesn't believe in predestination, but he's having all of these visions of someone dying in the future. And Misa is a princess who's been forced out of her village by a Sith. And it's very obvious that he's going to end up killing her at the end just because it's clearly Anakin Skywalker's story arc. This show would most likely be an Old Republic or even pre-Old Republic show when the Jedi and Sith are about equally matched as far as numbers go. It has a good enough foundation if it were to be simply inspired by Anakin's story and could maybe diverge fairly soon, but like this episode in particular doesn't give any reason to continue watching the show if it were to go on. This episode probably fits the best into Star Wars canon out of all of Vision's, but the two Jedi could very well just be Obi-Wan and Anakin in a different time. It's been about 200 years since the Sith disappeared, and so it's peacetime. The Jedi are on a security detail, essentially, just showing the populace that they're still around. The duel is well set in this episode, and it includes lightsabers that are fizzling in the rain, which was a nice touch. This Sith, called the Elder, when he's defeated, eliminates all traces that he'd been there, meaning that the rest of the Jedi Order has no reason to believe that the Sith have returned, so there's no problem with the timeline there. On a story level, I could see these two Jedi going out to try to prove the existence of the Sith, but on a character level, they're just not enough to carry a whole show. In the Stars, which is Season 2, Episode 3, includes a more gritty interpretation of the Empire, slightly more similar to what we get in Andor. This episode has a lot of good emotion, stakes, and payoff, but there are a few places where I think it falls down on a story level. I think the mural scene should be a sort of silent film at the beginning of episode 1. It could still be in mural form or maybe going in and out of mural form, but Tachina's voiceover of the simple and straightforward art just seems like the screenwriters talking down to the kids who are watching as if they can't understand what's being shown, which kids understand a lot more than a lot of kids' TV writers seem to think they can. The officer in charge isn't characterized as anything more than your typical Imperial scum, which is not enough for an antagonist in this setting, up against these resourceful and stealthy native girls. A good foil for that would be an officer who knows her facility backwards and front and is able to tell when things start going amiss. So she's able to notice that the water levels are being slowly depleted. She's able to find the entrance that Khoten's been using, and through the season there could be this nice back and forth of just one getting the upper hand over the other and them not really meeting until the end. Next we have Season 2 Episode 6, titled The Spy Dancer, which is an episode that I liked a lot more when I went back through the series for this video. The dance fight still comes across more fantastical than science fiction with everything the cloth can apparently do, but every character that's been established up until that point gets their time in the spotlight, quite literally. The reveal is pulled off a lot better than in Akakiri. It's not just completely obvious, at least it wasn't to me. And the fact that pretty much all the music in the episode is conducted live just helps to really pull you in and make you feel like you're a part of this journey. I don't know what you really could do to expand upon it, but I do think it lends itself very well to more episodes. This would be another early Rebellion show, which we've seen a lot of, but the angle they took with it could be enough to possibly set it apart. A simple story can go a long way, and a coming-of-age story for a robot told from a childlike perspective was a welcome addition to the show. Toby clearly expresses he wants to grow up and become a Jedi, not knowing his professor once was one. However, when the professor was killed, Toby puts aside his dream and goes ahead with his creator's goal for him. It's not until he has accomplished the task that was set before him that he's given his Kyber crystal and actually gets to fight as a Jedi. Even after he got his Kyber crystal, he doesn't then just go on and become what he thinks a Jedi should be. He instead follows in the footsteps of his master. I think it could be a fun miniseries, probably not a full show, but it was nice to see that in children's content. I Am Your Mother is an odd one. It's one of only two that I think works well enough as a standalone, but it's not like it couldn't or shouldn't be turned into a show. Like, it could work as a pilot, introducing Annie and her mother and all of her classmates and showing a loose idea of their dynamics. It could be a finale, what the whole show is leading up to, or it could just be an episode in the middle of the show that furthers character relationships and provides some action. It's fun to watch every time I go back to it, but it doesn't have as much to offer or as much potential as ones that I've placed higher on the list. The landscapes in The Village Bride are stunning and complemented nicely with the music and vocals that rise and fall and really fit the story where it's at. The simultaneous stories of Haru being wedded before her exile and of the Jedi character grieving her master's death are conveyed really well. The episode, however, is far too short for all the plot to fit inside it. Like Saku's rebellion, which appears suddenly and goes away both instances that it's brought up. The Jedi's change of heart has similarly minimal development, and the death of the Warlord isn't satisfying either because he hasn't been built towards as an antagonist. He's just sort of been a background figure that can work in some cases, but it didn't work with the amount of time that was given. Another point in the episode's favor is the design of F's yellow lightsaber. It was the first time I'd seen one since Rise of Skywalker, and it fit her a lot better than it did Rey or anyone who's wielded one since that I've seen. Overall, it's got great composition, really good foundations for characters and story. It just seems like the writers weren't given enough room. So this one is one that I would make into a full season, as this one episode could, I think, be a good plot for a show. I would have season 2 episode 8 be called The People of the Pit. It would follow Kruk, Eureka, and Livy as the pit continues to deepen and the Crystal City continues to grow, showing the passing of time, similar to how the Whomping Willow was utilized in The Prisoner of Azkaban. Over the course of the show, Crux and maybe a few other characters would bond with either one or more of the armadillo-like creatures that end up helping him in his climb after their abandonment by the Empire. In the short, Crux's death is already a fairly substantial blow, but it would work so much better at the end of a season. And Livy waking up the Kyber Crystal implies that there's going to be a second season. Although I think the short could make for a good series, the characters aren't developed enough in this episode to really get a sense of who they are and how they would really function as a part of the show, which other episodes in Visions, even ones that didn't make it this high on the list, are able to do much better. It does get bumped up by its concept and potential, but that's about it. Lop and Ocho, the 8th episode of the first season, honestly would have been in my top 5 if it weren't for the design choice of a rabbit. That being said, the introduction to the episode where Ocho is very welcoming of Lop into her family and their father is a lot more reserved contrasts really nice with the rest of the episode where Ocho chooses the Empire over her family for what she believes is the good of her planet. Meanwhile, their father bestows the family lightsaber to Lop, essentially naming her the heir, even though she's adopted. Her father fights the Empire in an attempt to protect Lop and Ocho. Meanwhile, Lop is just wanting all of the conflict to stop between them. Though she's clearly more aligned with her father's views, it's less important to her which side wins as long as they're together. The fact that their father is still alive at the end means that there's a chance for that resolution to still occur between all of them. But if he were to die along the way, that could even reforge the bond between the sisters. Lop being revealed as Force-sensitive in the pilot, but not a Jedi, or as far as we know, a Jedi's descendant, could add another layer to the plot, since Ocho would likely be pressured to report it to and aid Inquisitors or the like in hunting her, while Lop is also seeking her out, meaning no meeting of theirs in the future would seem contrived. And whether the whole family reunites, or just Lop and Ocho, or if Ocho simply doubles down until the end and completely rejects Lop, there's very few ways for it to end that would feel undeserved because of just how well the whole conflict has been set up. In 5th place is Season 2, Episode 2, Screecher's Reach. It feels like the payoff to intrigue and character dynamics we didn't actually get to see. It makes you wonder if Doll will stay on the path she's chosen out of desperation. You wonder how her friends are going to get on without her, or if they may go after her somehow, or if she'll return only to find that they can't even recognize her anymore because of who she's chosen to be. Screecher's Reach as an episode would either be the midpoint of a season, or better yet, the finale to Season 1, where this talisman has been a mysterious object the whole time, the character dynamics have been reinforced, and instead of that montage at the beginning, you get to see more of what she's running away from. The second half of the show would be all the answers to the new questions that have been posed in this episode, which seems to be answering all of the questions that would have come beforehand. I think this would have been probably the best show out of the ones that you could potentially make out of the Visions project to explore the Sith in their Rule of Two era and really dive into like what it's like to be a part of that and what would drive someone to be a part of that. And I wouldn't be surprised at this show becoming multi-seasonal. Like, maybe the first season is leading up to Screecher's Reach. The second season is leading up to either her returning or her friends finding her. And then season 3 is them working through who she's become over this course of time, whether or not she's rejected the Sith. And then there could even be a fourth show based on anything that could have been come up with during the third season. A show led by Ara and Tal, the main characters in season 2's 5th episode, Journey to the Dark Head, is definitely one I could watch even after they start to see eye to eye. They've just got such a great bickering dynamic. The two things missing from the episode are believable anger coming from Tol's voice actor, though, and the actual journey that they go on to the Dark Head. So I turned the first few minutes into the pilot, the last few minutes into the finale, and make the bulk of the show that journey. Especially because it keeps the protagonists antagonistic towards each other, even as they're pressing on to the same goal. The Sith from Tol's past can still spot him at the planet where Ara gets supplies, and then continue to follow them as they go along the journey, making stops here and there. Ara's motivation for cutting off the head and what she thinks it will actually accomplish should be better defined in the show. And the prophecy that she received in the first episode being paid off in a season finale would work so much better than payoff after about 20 minutes. In second place is The Duel, which obviously is the very first episode of the show. It gets you hooked right away with the art style, black and white except for any lights that are in the scene. And the Ronin is characterized so mysteriously. It's the first time in the show when we get to see this katana lightsaber, and actually in action. I don't remember how much of it was shown in the trailers, but it was just all so brand new to me, and actually did its job of making me want to watch the rest of Visions, while also being the one that made me the most curious about its own main character. I'm not going to theorize about where the story might go or what might have led up to the episode or anything like that, because there is actually a book and a graphic novel that goes along with the episode, which I do plan to read at some point. In third place is The Ninth Jedi. It has the longest runtime and uses this time very effectively, as well as its use of what's been called the mood ring style of lightsaber logic, which is used to show the main character's growth in confidence and ability, and in the reveal that the Sith or Inquisitors or whatever they are have actually killed all the Jedi that were supposed to show up, and that one of them is slowly regretting the decisions that he's made. The one who will end up joining the team and probably keep that purple color to his lightsaber. That Kara's father has been taken alive raises an interesting question for the series to explore as they go to try to find him. It probably has something to do with the fact that he knows how to make lightsabers, but there could be a completely different twist when they actually catch up with him. Overall, it's one of the most engaging episodes. It has all of the setup that I would want from a pilot, and most of the characters are ones that I could watch a show about or could maybe get behind later. In first place is the last episode of the show, Owl's Song. I briefly sort of mentioned it when I was talking about the Aardman episode, and this one just does not need to be a show. It would actually probably be a detriment if you tried to add on to it. It's a self-contained story. It's about this mining village, most likely during the High Republic, that are gathering these corrupted kyber crystals, and they give them to this Jedi that will take them to be purified at the Jedi Temple. Al can hear the crystals singing, and she sings back, and it seems to be destabilizing the crystals even more. But by the end, it's shown that she's actually inadvertently curing the kyber crystals from the corruption that they've endured on this entire planet. And so she is taken to the Jedi Temple. I don't know if she's being taken there to become a Jedi or simply to work purifying crystals. Maybe Al's song could be part of another anthology series that is just around the galaxy, and maybe Al could be mentioned or briefly shown if they're all meant to actually be part of the same world. But even that, I think, is unnecessary and just too cluttered. The story is very simple, very straightforward. The music is engaging. The character styles are compelling. So like and subscribe if you want, and if you feel like it, you can leave a comment. I do read them, and I try to write back. Other than that, until next time, bye.